Shalom everyone. This week's Torah portion is Parshat Vayeshev. And in this week's Torah portion, we start off with Joseph, having lived 22 years apart from his father, after his brothers threw him in a pit and then sold him down to Egypt, having the opportunity to finally reunite with his father Yaakov. And so there's a part in this Parsha where Yaakov finds out that his son is still alive and is traveling to Egypt to meet him. For the vast majority of this time, Jacob, the father, thought that his son Yosef was dead. And so he's coming down to Egypt and he's going to meet him again after 22 years for the first time. And when they finally meet, the verse writes as follows. It's in chapter 29, verse 46. It says, Vayar elav, and he made himself known to him. He appeared to him. Vayipol al savarav, and he fell on his neck. Vayivach al savarav od, and he cried on his neck a lot or more. And when the commentaries look at this, they notice that the language is all in singular. He cried on his neck, not they cried on each other's necks. And the commentators ask, why is it in singular? And so some say, well, it was the crying person, the one who was crying was Joseph, the son. And he was crying. And the reason why the father, Yaakov, wasn't crying was because when he saw Yosef, the first thing he did was he said the Shema. And so first he said the Shema, and then surely later he cried as well. Another commentary says that actually he didn't cry at first because he didn't actually recognize his son. It had been such a long time. When he last saw him, he was a young teenage shepherd, and now he is the leader of Egypt. And so that moment of not recognizing him is what made him hold back at first, and then afterwards also he cried. But I think another way that we can look at this is that actually in this moment where they're coming together and reuniting and crying, they are not two separate people, right? Their souls are coming together in such an intense way that it's almost as if it's one person crying, because they're so connected to one another and they're so in touch with what each other's feeling, and they're feeling the same thing of we are back together. And so their crying is almost like one person crying. When I think about this pasuk, it just takes me back a few weeks ago even to our experience of witnessing reunions like this on video in real time. And I really feel like I saw exactly what the commentaries are talking about, right? We saw people come home and we saw loved ones recite the Shema. We saw people come home looking so different than when they left, that it might have taken their family members a breath before they recognized them. And we saw so many incredible moments of hugging and crying in such an intense way. Some of these embraces, it was like it was one person. You couldn't tell who was who. Their souls were coming back together and they were embracing and crying together like one voice. And these tears are so beautiful and so multifaceted. Surely in the reunion between Jacob and Joseph, there wasn't just one type of tear, right? The verse says ode. There were many tears, not necessarily just in number, but also in the genre of tears that they were crying. I'm sure I can imagine that they were having tears of joy to finally be back together, but there probably were also tears of sadness for all the time they had lost with one another. There are tears probably of wonder of what were you doing all this time? Were you looking for me? Were you trying to get back together with me? And maybe also there were tears of relief and disbelief. They probably never thought they'd ever see each other again. And I think this idea of this multifaceted tears is something that to me feels very SVIVAH, right? Because in SVIVAH, we do a lot of crying. Sometimes some of us cry on screen. Some people might cry with their screens turned off, but we totally embrace crying. We invite you to bring tissues, and I find the crying that happens at SVIVAH to also be multifaceted. I feel like sometimes I'm like crying because there's something sad, but then sometimes I'm crying because there's something so funny that it makes me cry. And then other times there's like the tears of joy and just everything in between. And I find that to be such a healthy and beautiful space that we have that we can just cry in public and it's okay. And I've been thinking a lot about this idea of crying. In another class I was teaching, someone started crying, and then another person said, hey, it's cool to cry. And if you Google that, actually there's t-shirts on the internet that you can get that say it's cool to cry, which I thought was amazing. And I also recently heard another teacher of mine who said, tears are like the liquid truth. Like when you hear something that is true, your body expels this liquid from your eyes because of what you're feeling and because you're so touched by something you heard. So when you start crying, you know that whatever you just heard might be something true for you. So that's something to kind of play with and think about. Is that true about you? Does that resonate for you? And see how that feels. And there's a quote from the Talmud about tears, which is, Sharei T'ma'ot lo ninalu, the gates of tears are never closed. So there's a special place in prayer and in Jewish expression for tears. And it's not just sad tears, it's any kind of tears. So tears are very much honored and embraced and welcome. So for the Shabbat, I invite you to think about a few things related to tears. When is the last time that you cried? You might know the answer because maybe it was 5 minutes ago, or maybe it was a longer time ago and you need to think back a little bit. What types of tears have you been experiencing? You know, have you been in a place of tears of joy? Have you been in a place of tears of sorrow? Have you had a mixed array of different types of tears? And are there tears that are like within you that want to come out, but that you haven't really made space for? And perhaps over the Shabbat, you want to just kind of make some space for those tears to be expressed in whatever way feels comfortable for you. So just kind of spend some time thinking about tears, sitting in that space. We welcome crying in private, crying in public, crying anytime you want, not forced crying, of course, natural crying, but all tears are welcome and should be honored and are expressions of truth. So I'm going to leave you with a song about tears. This song is by Rami Kleinstein, and it's called Hazma'ot Shel Etmol, the tears of yesterday. So we'll drop the song and the lyrics, and wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom.